Hi, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast for Complete and Box video games. I'm your host, Spencer, and with us as always, well, most of the time nowadays,
so far always,
is Parker. How's it going today?
Hey!
So, today, we have Ham City.
Ham City!
In episode 30, this is game review number 8. Last time in episode 28, we brought you Batman Arkham Asylum. Well, guess what? Now are we upgrading to Arkham City? We're going to find out, but we're moving on to Arkham City. So,
we're leaving the asylum and we're going to the city.
Yeah, so we're like deranged from the asylum and just wandering the city streets at this point.
Exactly. We were dropped off and left by corrupt officials.
And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Once again, to go over this real quick, I know it's our 8th game review, but we'll lay out the ground rules real quick. We grade...
No fighting, no biting.
Yeah.
No hitting below the belt.
Or Judge Mills Lane over here. I want a good clean fight.
No personal. Like, what are we talking? Like, we're just doing a review. Yeah, well, remember that time that you were a jerk? It's like, what? What does that? Doesn't have to do anything.
Well, that's the number one rule. Is actually we need to do that.
Yeah.
So we're grade off 6 different things. We have story, we have gameplay, we have sound, voice acting, music, all that stuff. We have graphics and atmosphere. We have fun factor and replayability. We grade them all out of 10. We average it up, and it's good to go. So, once again, a 5 to us is completely average. A 7 would be, unlike a lot of game reviews you see nowadays, a 7 would be a pretty solid experience. We've graded some pretty good games. Like Asylum, I'm looking at it. Mine ended up being a 7.9, and Parker's was an 8.25. So, a 7 is good. We really had a good time with Asylum.
Absolutely.
Really good game. So, I guess let's get started into it. Let's go into the story of Batman Ham City.
Ham City. So, yeah, we got, Arkham Asylum, very, kind of simple story, because it's in one small place. So there's, a lot going on, but, there's not a big open world. So, in Arkham City, they had to ramp it up. So, it's a much, much bigger world.
Absolutely, it's almost open world at this point. It's not nearly as big as a Skyrim or whatever, but it's pretty much from the beginning you're able to go. Yeah. You're not able to enter every building, but you can go to almost every area of the map.
Exactly. Yep. So. You can absolutely just get all over the place. Obviously, most stuff you won't be able to do because you don't have the right gadgets or whatever. But for the most part, you can go everywhere and look at everything, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, storyline wise, we got. This Arkham City, which is basically like a super prison. It's like Arkham Asylum, times 10. So they were instead of just having an asylum, and also Blackgate, which Blackgate was having a problem, let's have a big giant city.
I like how Gotham is so effed that it's it's prison, no.
We have so many criminals, we need a whole city.
Need a city of them.
A whole section of the city. So basically they were well, there's one part of the city's crumbling and falling apart, so rather than fix it, let's just put all the criminals there and wall it off. So...
And that's literally where you are. So, yes.
Yeah. So, at Arkham Asylum, it was revealed if you played through, the Easter egg, some of the... finding all those secrets, it was revealed that Quincy Sharp was felt like or pretending or whatever that he was possessed by the ghost of Arkham, that was where Arkham Asylum is from, the Arkham Mansion, and was abusing patients psychologically and doing all sorts of craziness. He then, obviously, you don't have any evidence to actually bring him to task. He then runs for mayor and wins because of the success of Arkham Asylum. When the events in Arkham Asylum happen, it ends up looking good for him because, it all gets resolved without the world ending. So, he's hey, I was able to run Arkham Asylum. I can run the town. So he becomes mayor, and then Arkham City happens, and he puts in charge his... this kind of guy out of nowhere named Hugo Strange, who then proceeds to further abuse the patients with his psychological manipulation. And it turns out that Quincy Sharp, is also being manipulated. So the original whole thing where Quincy Sharp was like maybe doing weird stuff was really just Hugo Strange like using hypnotic suggestion and other such nonsense to make him like whatever. So that's it. And then you're basically Batman trying to, get a handle on what's going on in Arkham City.
It should be mentioned that Hugo Strange is like one of the only, if not the only, one of the only,
few,
Bane does too, that to know Batman's true identity as Bruce Wayne. I think Bane knows as well.
Bane, I think, has certain storylines. Bane's found it out, but then forgotten it because of the Venom use, destroys your memory, things like that. So there's been different stuff.
But Hugo definitely knows, because he'll talk to him and be like, rules.
Yeah. He knows it. He figured it out using... I mean, obviously...
Was this not shown in the game?
Yeah, obviously it's not that... when you're reading the comic as a regular person, you're like, how has nobody figured this out? I mean, like a lot of superhero stories, like Superman, when Clark Kent has glasses and it's like, no one gets it. I mean, very similar. Bruce Wayne, it's kind of like pretty obvious. He's like the richest guy in Gotham, and it's like, he kind of looks the same, and they're never together. Weird. Oh, must be. But anyway, so Hugo Strange, comes up with a psychological profile and figures it out and threatens to reveal it. So you kind of are like, sort of like trying to stay out of his, you don't want him to just reveal it. Because if he puts it just out on the news, then it's going to make things really hard for you. So he's kind of like, but he's also crazy in that sense that he wants things to go the way he wants them to go. So he doesn't want to just put it out on the news. He wants to break you psychologically so that you reveal it yourself or whatever. He wants to dominate you. So that's how you can kind of use that to your advantage, and you tool around the city, cleaning up messes and things. And obviously the Joker is in this one. So his storyline, kind of separate, kind of intermingled. I mean, and that I'm going to just start off right before we even finish talking about the stories. Like one of my problems with open world games in general is that you do lose the thread of the story at times because you get doing something else. And then you're like, okay, I got a bunch of riddles.
I mean, I would say that legitimately one of the reasons that I would say I enjoy the corridor style things much more. A great example is all the God of War series. There's really not that, it's pretty much a linear line, left to right kind of thing. And because of that, you don't ever have a chance of missing out on story. Right. Whereas we talked in Arkham Asylum, when you were like, oh, did you do that extra thing where you found out that Quincy Sharp went insane? I was like, wow, really?
Yeah,
and that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's at least big enough that you're like, wow, neat. Or the Riddler getting caught or whatever. It's like, oh man, I wish I would have known.
There's really, with games like this that are non-linear and more open world, I think it's just, if you have the positive of having all this extra possibilities in gameplay, you gotta lose a little bit in story. And that's why this game is a rarity for me. I very, very rarely play open world games.
Right.
I mean, my games are usually Resident Evil, we were playing 4, 5, and 6 or whatever. They're pretty linear, and that's just for me.
Right.
So this is one of the few that I can think of. I've never personally, I'm sorry, YouTube land, played and finished a Skyrim or a Fallout or a Far Cry because there's just it's too much for me.
Did you play Vice City?
Yeah, now I did those.
Okay.
I
feel like that's the best one.
I got to admit that those I played 3 in Vice City, and I got to admit that those I was mostly doing the storyline,
just
because that's
exactly.
I like story. That's my whole reason for it. So yeah, I can totally feel you with that. I mean, we'll go into that a little deeper. Joker is again in this one at the end of Arkham Asylum. He was going pretty crazy from having the Titan virus in him. Titan virus was essentially something you use to
or it's Titan formula or whatever.
Yeah,
But it gave him something.
Essentially,
when he came down, he now has some weird disease.
Yeah, essentially he wanted to make an army of Banes.
Right.
So he was doing that, and then something, he was in a life or death situation, so he was like, I'm gonna, do this. Right. So now he has a disease, and now he's kind of messed up.
Yeah, and he's dying. He's deteriorating, and so pretty early on in the thing, like you have to meet up with him. Like he basically he's like threatens to do something, and you like you go to where he is, and he tricks you. He has like this like, there's this Joker that's like dying in a wheelchair, and then all of a sudden like the joke like maybe it was a mannequin, because then Joker jumps on you and stabs you in the arm with a needle and basically injects you with his whatever disease he has. So now you have it. So now it's like, okay, now I have to figure out how to fix this.
And I gotta say, that's my favorite part of the story. You don't really need to go too deep in symbolism for like comic book things, but I think Batman probably has the most. And I like really subscribe to the theory that like Batman is like, you can't have Batman without Joker. You can't have Joker without Batman.
Right.
So like that's kind of making them like the same person in the sense that they both have this super rare disease.
Yeah.
That legitimately pretty much you spend 80% of the game trying to find this.
Right. Well, because and even at the moment that he gets injected, and Joker's like haha, now you have to save yourself or whatever, and by extension save me, and Batman has a moment where he's like, we'll both die then, and then the world will be rid of you, and of course Joker knew you were going to say that, and then is like, well, that's why I also have been putting it in blood packs and sending it out to hospitals. So basically, like hospitals around Gotham have been using the blood that's been tainted with the virus to like, as transfusions and stuff, but it's all mixed in. And so now Batman's like, fine, now I have to figure out how to cure this thing. And so he sets out. So the majority of the game is you figuring out what's going on with Hugo Strange while also trying to figure out how to cure yourself from this disease.
And I mean, you meet a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
So we mentioned last time, and I like how they did this in Asylum. You don't meet everyone. It's not like we met everyone. What can we do now? You didn't meet the Penguin before. He's one of the main guys. You didn't meet Mr. Freeze. He's one of the main guys.
Two-Face.
And the stories, I don't want to say too complicated, but there's too much to go into each individual one. Two-Face, yeah.
Right.
So the thing I like about this is it feels like, again, like Batman, because Mr. Freeze is like, I don't care about anything, but we gotta figure out my wife.
Right, exactly.
Nora.
Yeah.
Moira, remember from Revelations 2? Nora. Right. And Penguin's just like, I'm a thug and I want to just kind of mess stuff up, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And
Penguin didn't even really need to be, like, when they created the whole thing, I mean, kind of interesting, when they create the super prison Arkham City, there's not enough evidence to, like, ever convict Penguin. Like, leading up to the events of creating Arkham City. Like, they could convict his thugs, but he was, like, smart enough to never be, like, absolutely linked. So they could never bring him to justice. Well, he happened to have his base of operations where they planned to make Arkham City, and he kept refusing to leave. Like, he lives in this, like, museum, basically. And they're like, look, you gotta move your Iceberg Lounge and your museum. Like, you gotta go away. We're building this super prison, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, they put eminent domain, basically, and saying, like, we can just buy your stuff out. And he just refused to leave, and then they just eventually built the prison around him. So, like, they got him in jail, basically, by him not wanting to leave. Like, up to that point, he was, like, escaping justice, and then he basically, like, let himself be in jail because he didn't want to leave. And so I'm like, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you get, again, you meet all these guys, and they all have individual things going on. There's a lot of side quests.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the negatives, where the first time I played this game, I didn't do a lot of the side quests for whatever reason. And this time, where we're playing it on the PS4, I went through and did all the side quests, minus and we'll go into it, the Riddler stuff and whatever. But there's, like, a lot of, like, neat characters that you meet that I'm like, oh, wow, like, I never knew, because he's obviously a minor character, the surgeon who made himself look like Bruce.
His name's Hush.
So that looks like Bruce Wayne. I never knew that. That was really cool. It was like a reveal to me where I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. It was hard to tell whether they were implying that he also might have known that Batman is Bruce Wayne, because he was kind of like his reveal of that he was wearing Bruce Wayne's face. like made it seem like maybe he knew, just in the sense that like this guy like clearly, because he's a surgeon, knows like facial stuff like so well that maybe he could tell it's Bruce Wayne under the mask. I can't really tell that part. It just was obvious that he was gonna like probably do very bad stuff looking like Bruce Wayne. Like, you know, he was probably not gonna do good things.
Yeah.
Because he was clearly a crazy psychopath. So
Yeah.
that's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, there's lots of little characters like that you don't have to meet at all if you want to just play through the main story. But you can, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
And I'm not sure whether to when we're looking at this in terms of an overall grade, to like make that a positive or a negative, because it's like,
right.
I played the game literally, and I beat the quest without meeting Hush.
Right.
So it's like, is that a positive or a negative? A positive in that, like, well, you can do more if you want.
Right.
Or is a negative in like, you know, like the one, I'm one of those people that if I just don't have patience. So if I can't figure out something after a little bit, I'll just look it up. And I couldn't figure out where one of the crime scenes was. I was trying so hard.
Right.
And I had to eventually look it up, and it's like, well, I just wanted to know what was happening with that, but I looked everywhere and I wasn't getting like any clues, and it wasn't showing up, and you know, whatever.
Right.
And again, that's more part of the gameplay, but it's also, you know, part of the storyline where it's like, I wanted to know what was happening, but because it's a big open world game where like you just have to go find a bunch of stuff, I never met that guy before.
Well, conversely, is also, I mean, not conversely, but like in addition would be the Azrael thing, where that guy, that weird Templar Knight, shows up in a bunch of places. Maybe you didn't even see him.
I think I did that the first time.
Okay, he like has like a weird light sword and stuff, but he's in 4 or 5 different places, and as you keep finding him, you can then triangulate like a spot to like have like a little like final like wrapping up of his storyline. It's not really anything. You don't fight him. You don't do anything. You just find him in 4 or 5 places, and then he like says like, you know, that you're like the answer to some prophecy or whatever. But like they're very specific places, and it's weird because he's basically the best way to find him, if you're not gonna look it up, is that he's like, when you're in detective mode, you can see people, and he would be somebody that will be by himself and also like not walking around. So like most times you see a blue skeleton is an unarmed person, and they're usually with a group. There's never like one unarmed person by themselves.
That is rare.
And so and also they're usually walking or like moving around in some way. And this would be like he's by himself. And like sometimes it's a weird place, like way up on top of like the Ferris wheel. So then it's easy because you're like, oh, he's up there. But like other times he's just like on a ledge, and you're like, oh, geez. Like, you know, like I stumbled across him at least twice where you're just like, what? Like, I landed on a building just to scope out something, and all of a sudden it was, like, triggering a quest. I was like, wait, what's happening? Like, I was, like, about to go to the next thing, and I'm like, all right, let me see how I'm going to tackle this. And then it's like, welcome, Batman. You are... And I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Well, and another one I talked to you before you even started the game, I had no idea Bane was in this game.
Right.
And I like... Bane? I gotta get in. Gotta get in one time. So, I like him and whatever. And his thing was his storyline was kind of whatever, but it was still cool that he was in the dang game, like I never would have known otherwise that he was in the game.
And one thing I thought that was cool was like for the side quests for like Bane in particular, they make Batman into like, because like one of the things that I was like at first, you know, with Bane's quest, you're basically finding the Titan formula and destroying it because he found out that it got off Arkham Island. And so he's like, help me destroy all the canisters. And you're like, okay. And then you go, he's like, I'm going to destroy 6. You destroy 6. There's 12, right? So then you go and talk to him, and then like, he's like, I didn't destroy my 6. I'm going to use them to destroy everything because they're all for me. And like, rather than make you fight Bane, which like, you already had to do
a million times in the last game, right?
Like you just basically like it's like not even a quick time event in the cinematic. You just like step out of the way, and then he like runs himself into a like little jail cell, and then you like makeshift lock him in it, and it's like that's awesome because like that's what Batman would do. He wouldn't have to fight necessarily every time. He's like he knew like he says like to Alfred or to Oracle or whatever, he like mentions a few times like, I'm sure Bane is gonna be doing something. He's very aware that like Bane's not just gonna be like, I destroyed my 6. So like it's pretty great that like they just show Batman just like lock him up, and then you can destroy the stuff, and then that's it. You don't have to fight Bane. It's just a nice little side quest. And I was like, that was satisfying, because it was like, they're not going to make you go through the rigmarole of just fighting him just to be like, okay, whatever. Like, I already fought him. I don't need to fight him again. Like, and sure enough, he just uses his, like, Batman trick to, like, oh, I tricked you into locking yourself up.
I also like the small thing they threw in of, like, you have to destroy the virus things, containers, as he's standing there. He's like, no, come on!
Yeah, and he's like, no!
You do one, and he's like, hey! And you're like, that was super fun. Pretty good.
And I'm like, the whole time, though, I was waiting for, like, him to bust out. Like, I'm like, when I do the 6th one, he's gonna bust out. And then he doesn't. And then you can walk over and you can talk to him. And he's like, I'll get you, Batman. And it's like, this is excellent.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool.
That is another thing that happened. So, getting towards the end of the story.
Now, the other thing that happens is it's not a side quest. Is that you play as Catwoman?
Yes. Now
they force you.
It should be mentioned,
right,
that the version we played, the PS4 one, is essentially the complete version. The original one did not.
Gotcha.
Now, when you got the Game of the Year one for the PS3, you did as well.
It had it.
So
it kind of forced you to play as Catwoman. It just changed to her perspective.
If we're focusing just on story, it really does not add that much. I played the whole game before, and now we have the Catwoman thing. If we're just looking at story, gameplay separate, it really doesn't, like... It fleshes out a little bit more. Like,
yeah, right. It fleshes things out, but it doesn't...
You get to see Two-Face one or two more times, but, like, there's not, like, oh my gosh, you know?
There's no crazy...
That's what DLC has... I mean, that's what... Unfortunately, when you have a world of DLC, that's what it has to do, and that's what originally it was. You can't have DLC be like, oh, that's the real ending, you know? Like,
that's always ridiculous. The worst when that happens.
So, you're playing as Catwoman once, and it's not very often. It's 2 or 3 times. You probably play as her for maybe an hour and a half, and whereas the whole story is probably like 10 hours, 10 hours, whatever.
For sure.
So
it's definitely small, but one thing that I did find out playing as Catwoman, because obviously I'm more of a collector, so like in games, not in real life. But
opposite of real life.
But so one thing I found out was you can talk to some of those characters like that. So like one of her Riddler trophies is in Bane, where you capture him, and you can go and talk to Bane, and it's an actual conversation. It's not like just like text on the screen. It's like you zoom in on his face, and he's like, "Let me out of here, woman," and you're like. And you basically, give him some snide remark, and then he's like, "I'll kill you," and you're like, "Yeah, well, I'm definitely not letting you out now." Like it was like, if there was a chance I was letting you out, you just ruined it. And he's like, ugh. And so like I thought that was a nice little touch, because like, obviously now finding out that Catwoman was like definitely DLC, they actually like mapped it in that you could talk to all of the people that were captured. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but like I said, it's not like it added enough where I was like, whoa. I mean, it was fun. That's gameplay that we're talking about. As you get near the end, you get to a large, I don't know what building it is.
Wonder Tower.
Hugo Strange is in Wonder Tower.
Yeah, which is like this big, massive tower that was built a long time ago and then kind of fell into ruin. It was like basically this group of people that were like, that I think were run by Ra's al Ghul, but it's like we're like building something to basically like be like the true utopia, and then it turns out that it's like it was not a utopia at all, and so then it's just this ruined building of utopia. And anyway, Hugo Strange is up on top, so you make your way up to kill him, and that's when it's revealed that Ra's al Ghul is behind the whole thing, because he's and
you did earlier meet Ra's al Ghul, and
you used him. Talia is your love interest or whatever, and you used his the enzyme that makes Ra's al Ghul that like come back to life with the Lazarus pit or whatever, is used in the synthesis of the cure for your disease.
Right.
Because basically, like, Mr. Freeze is like, we can make a cure, but it has to bond to human DNA, and it'd take, like, decades or centuries. And he's like, well, what if I told you there's a guy that's already made it bonded to the human? So you just had to go get a blood sample of Ra's al Ghul. So that happens. So yeah, like, and so they introduce him as part of the Joker cure for the disease storyline, but then he ends up becoming the main part of the Hugo Strange storyline. So you're like, oh wow.
So Hugo, it's been a couple weeks since I played. Hugo is killed.
Yes. Well, you
most likely,
yes, because you get
tower,
blown up
because the tower comes down.
Yeah.
The whole tower explodes,
Yes.
and Raj is, you fall off it. He's
Right.
impaled. But
Well, you're falling with him, and like you're gonna probably save him, and he sees that you're gonna save him, so he goes to run his sword through himself and you, and of course you push off of him, and then gets impaled on like a spike. In addition to that,
but because he still has the Lazarus Pit,
it's
in
possible
this thing he would maybe not be like dead.
Right? Exactly.
Because that Lazarus Pit, for all y'all not familiar, is like. He throughout the story would be like getting pretty bad, and he would get in it, and it's essentially the Fountain of Youth kind of thing. It's essentially the Fountain of Youth.
It's basically like this stuff that like then brings you back to life if you have enough energy, which coincidentally is also the reason that Solomon Grundy, who is legitimately one of my favorite Batman side characters.
Oh,
obviously,
goodness, yeah.
He's not Batman or Joker, but like as far as like bit side character, Solomon Grundy has the coolest storyline. He's basically just some crazy like dude that like
he was a murderer from like the early 1900s.
Exactly, and he like went and hid in the swamp, and he commits suicide. And then the swamp basically brings him back to life, and he forgets everything from his past life. And the first thing that he does, he goes into like a vagrant like hobo camp, and somebody like is singing a nursery rhyme, which is about Solomon Grundy born on a Monday, and there's this little nursery rhyme, and he basically latches onto it and just calls himself Solomon Grundy, and so. Like, his whole thing, he's just basically like a plant zombie. Like, all of his body is, like, filled with the enzyme that's used in the Lazarus Pits. His body is basically, like, half plant, half human. His, like, blood is chlorophyll and stuff. So he'll never die. Because he's basically, like, it's like any kind of plant. Like, if a plant dies, you can probably plant it, and then it will grow again. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's got seeds, it's got whatever. So he's basically like that. So, like, every time you defeat him, he just like goes away for a while, but then eventually just comes back.
And that's, like, I mean, that just furthers my point that I made last time, whereas like I don't know a lot about the universes of other superheroes, but you would have to like convince me pretty hard that one's deeper and cooler than Batman.
Because that's
like Solomon Grundy is like very in terms. He's like the 40th most like mentioned, and he's like cool as heck.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And it's like
he barely is ever in.
If you put him in something like, well, Spider-Man's pretty cool. I don't know, something like Thor, where there might be like 4 or 5 real cool guys, but it's like Solomon Grundy would be like 5 in there, and he's like 40 in this one. Yeah, and that's another cool thing they do as far as the story is concerned. I don't know if they had plans on making more at the time or whatever, but it's like it's so deep the amount of characters that they could just do that. So you get near the end and you find that Joker has Talia in some like abandoned theater. Yeah. You get there, Talia is killed. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Joker shoots her. Basically, like, you know, she double crosses Joker. Like, she at first says to Joker like, oh, like, we're gonna, you know, bring you back to life with the Lazarus Pit and blah, blah, blah. And it was basically, like, her way of trying to help you out. And so she, like, you know, brings Joker to whatever. You show up, and then she, like, goes to basically stab him from behind, but he, like, you know, gets out of the way, whatever, and then he shoots her. Well, no, she does stab him. She does stab him, but then it's revealed...
Which is the coolest reveal, in my opinion, that the Joker that you saw, which was getting increasingly better.
Right.
As it went on, you're like, wow, Joker's gonna survive or whatever.
Yeah, and you're like, weird. I wonder what happened.
What was actually Clayface, who can become pretty much anyone that he wants to because he's made of clay or whatever.
So when she stabs him, then all of a sudden there's like you have this kind of like flashback where you're like wondering in your mind like whatever, you put 2 and 2 together, and then you're like, you know, basically 1 second too late, as is usually the case. You're like, Talia, no! And Joker, the real Joker, is on the balcony and shoots her. And then of course the Joker that was stabbed starts morphing because you can't just stab Clayface. He's like made of like sand and clay. Like you can't really kill him.
So you fight Clayface. That's actually the final boss.
Yep.
Which again, I'm fine with that. Not having the same. Oh, that's more in gameplay. But so then Joker is at death's door.
Yep.
And you have
this cure.
You have the cure. Now Batman at that point had already been cured, right?
No, he took it there. Like he has it and he drinks it.
Oh, that's right.
And what had happened was the cure was made, and then Mr. Freeze like hid it, and then someone stole it, and you thought it was Harley Quinn, and she brought it to the Joker, but Harley Quinn stole it, and then Talia stole it from her. So Talia had it,
right?
So she hands it to Batman and is like, "Here's the cure." So Batman drinks it, and he's cured, and then.
And then Joker, being Joker, tries to,
Basically, he's like, I want it! And he jumps on him to get it, and then in doing so, knocks it out of Batman's hand, and it crashes on the ground. And Batman reveals that, even after all of this, he's like, I still would have saved you. And then Joker, of course, starts laughing, because he's like, that's the craziest thing of all. Because, Joker kind of assumed... Yeah, Joker assumed that Batman was gonna not save him. Because it's like, a way to kill Joker without actually killing him is to just let him die. So Joker got worried and went to just go grab for it, and then in the end, sentence himself to death.
And, I mean, that's such a great moment when Batman's like, and you absolutely 100% believe him. You're like,
right.
Man, he would have.
Oh yeah,
he would have freaking saved him, kind of thing. And he's like just laughing, and like he dies as he's laughing, and that's perfect. Like that ending part was great. And then it pretty much.
I was surprised. I was like, wait, what?
I know.
I
and
was
that first happened, you're like,
away.
dang. And it ends with you like carrying Joker's body out of Arkham City, and it's like a really cool scene because like. All these thugs that would normally like be going crazy are like,
what's going on?
Or like, serious, like they're just standing there like, oh crap,
and
like,
no one really knows what happens.
At that point, the world is different. At that point, like anyone who would be like, it's just the bats, would be like, oh,
right. Well, because like no one knows what happened really. Like when you're walking out, so like some people are like, did Batman finally crack and just kill the Joker? Like, like no one knows because obviously Joker was like lying to everybody always, so no one even really knew whether Joker was dying or not dying or anything. Yeah. So like all they see is you walking out with him, and everybody's like, "What happened?"
So overall, the story, as we mentioned before, it's a little more disjointed because it's more of an open world kind of game. I still like if I'm looking at the positives, Joker being in anything, great. He did a great job. Right. The big reveal at the end is great. Finding all those characters that you can just like go around. I thought the cast of characters was a little more robust in this one.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a bigger game, so if you don't have more characters, you have a lot of empty space.
Right.
And the fact that they had a lot of those like smaller characters that like I would literally read the bios and be like, oh, like Hush, or like, oh, look at that. Right. So I don't think it's quite as strong if we're looking just at the story as Asylum because it's a little more disjointed. But I still liked it quite a bit. I'm looking at an 8 overall.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 7, and the reason is a little bit detailed. We talked about the disjointed thing, but one of the things that would have made it a 9 for me was there was this Easter egg that they didn't need to put in, but like when you go to the steel mill where Joker's hideout is, and you go into his office, you see Harley's old outfit. Like, she has a new outfit she mentions when you first meet her. But you see her old outfit from Arkham Asylum. And if you go over there and look, near there on the ground is a pregnancy test. And it's positive. So there's this possibility that Harley Quinn is pregnant with Joker's baby, which is the assumption. Well, then there's a DLC thing that you can play called Harley's Revenge. So, like, when I finished it, I was like, oh, let me check this out. And it's just like a short little playthrough where you basically play back and forth as Robin, the new Robin, like, not Dick Grayson, but the Jason, I guess his name is. But, yeah, you play as Robin, and you go back and forth with Batman, and it takes place after Joker's dead, and Harley has lost her mind, and she's crazy. And, like, you're like, holy crap, are they going to, like, reveal that, like, whatever, like, she's, like, lost the baby, this and that, whatever. And they basically write it, like, I think they, like, probably were like, ooh, this is a cool idea. And then maybe the writers were like, how are we going to actually do this whole thing with, what's Batman going to, like, beat up a baby or whatever? And rather than figure out a way to write it out, like, in a dark way, they just kind of wrote it out where you find a bassinet and there's like a million pregnancy tests around it, and they're all negative, and you find a box that says pregnancy tests sometime, like, can give false positives.
Oh, come on.
And it was like what a, like, cheap out. And so, like, because when it was called Harley's Revenge and stuff, I'm like, oh, she gonna be really mad because basically Batman, like, in her mind, killed the father of her baby. And then when the baby wasn't a thing, I was like, oh, maybe, like, she lost the baby, which is, like, also awful and really dark and could be, like, really, like make her, like, lose her mind.
Yeah.
But then, like, that it's just like, oh, she just wasn't pregnant. It's like, okay. So I was a little bit annoyed at that, and to the point where I was like, it hurt because they presented it as story. It's not like you talk about, like, Dead Space with novels. It's not like extra stuff. It's in the game. You can choose to not, like, if you don't go that deep, you might not see it. But that still, they presented it as story. And so for me, like, that gave it a little bit. So I had to bump it down to a 7.
I mean, that's definitely a tease that right. They didn't know where to run with.
Exactly. So. And, like, it could have been a 9, because if they would have, like, done something really, like, you know, dark with her, like, losing the baby or, like, whatever, like, something crazy. Like, it could have gone, like, really, like, whoa. And then you could have, like, really explained why she's, like, completely lost it or this or that. And you just kind of copped out, which, whatever. I guess they didn't know what to do with it, but, And who knows, maybe it was like some designer put it in. They were like, ooh, let me just draw this in. And then the writers were like, what did you just do? Like, that's a huge story thing. You take it out. It's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know.
That's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
But anyway, I bumped it down to a 7 from that.
And completely understandable given what we just said. So going on to gameplay now, I don't really want to go into this in depth because it's very similar to Asylum. So, again, not to beat a dead horse, we talked about it last time. In general, Batman is both a sneaking and, once in a while, a fighting game.
The fighting is pretty simple.
Very simple. Like a one-button kind of thing. One button for counter, one button for thing. Here's where a lot of the game shines for me, because it takes parts in Asylum that you're, like, groaning at because it's just kind of whatever, and really just... It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it
right.
patches
Makes
the holes in
Absolutely.
it. So the combat in it is much more fluid. You have a lot of cool combos. You have a lot of really cool gadgets and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I can't even think of any off the top of my one minor one off the top of my head, which is really cool, is that Electrico Burst one, where you can just shoot you shoot machines and it'll either turn them on or turn them off or whatever, and that'll open doors and start machines. And, like, I don't know, like, that's like, I would never think of putting that in, but, like, every place you're like, how do I get this Riddler trophy?
Oh yeah. A lot of them involve it, for sure.
Kind of thing. So,
but you can also use them, like, pretty, like, in a fun way. You can use them for combat, like against Mr. Freeze. You end up using it to, like, it, like, can, like, magnetize him. So, like, you can make it either attract or, like, you can turn on this electromagnet thing and it'll either attract or repel. And so you can click it on attract, and then Mr. Freeze, like, gets sucked into it and it's like, oh, I can't get away, and you can beat him up a little bit. And they do the same thing when you're in a sneak mission. You could do it, and everybody's guns that is nearby will fly out of their hands, and it's like, oh, that's a fun little thing.
And in general, the biggest change that we're looking at is the fact that it's like an open world in Arkham City. And I think if you get down to it, that's really all people would ever want.
Right.
In a Batman game.
Yeah.
It's like when they made Spider-Man 1 for the original Xbox, and it was like just to beat him up, and you're like, okay. Then they made Spider-Man 2, and you're literally swinging around New York, and it's like,
this is
great.
This is all I wanted.
Okay. So when they come out with Spider-Man games, anyone that's not like, you're able to swing around the city, it's like, why did you make this video game?
Exactly.
Like, I guess I could understand if they made a completely different Batman game, like, whatever. But it's like, if it's in Gotham...
Yep.
Just make it where you can just... I mean, it was... most of my fun time was just going around and having fun with that. I just have such a good time. The Batclaw is, like, the best.
Yes, absolutely.
Just being able to, like, grab onto a high building, it pulls you in, and then if you tap X twice, I think you can, like, glide around,
boost.
and you fly around. And it's just so fun to do that. Once in a while, you'll... a little bit of this goes into the atmosphere, but you'll see, like... things happening. You'll see, a bunch of guys fighting. You'll see one of the side quests is these political prisoners. You'll be flying by, and it'll be like, "Don't hurt me," and you're like, "Oh, gotta go find that." He's being, hurt by someone. And just in general, that's
which is
just,
like so perfect Batman.
That's just
like
just perfect.
like
just
helping people
just to come out of nowhere and just like whatever. And that's perfect. That you fall down and you knock them out real quick.
Yep. The grade 2 is like it's so satisfying to like fall in the middle of a bunch of guys that weren't expecting you, and they all react like they like fall backwards a little bit, and then they recover and start fighting you. But for that first second, they're like, "Oh, it's the Bat! How does he?" They like kind of trip over themselves, or they're like, "Oh, no way!" And they're like actually upset, and you're like, "That's awesome."
And yeah, it's just awesome. Like just being able to go around is just I really like it. Like I don't. If you like Batman, I don't know how I don't even like open world games. It's just fun to do.
Yeah,
there's so many things as you go around that you can just randomly find little like Easter eggs. You like the first time I went by and there was a ringing phone. I was like, what the heck? And it ended up being this huge side quest for Zaz, the serial killer, where you have to find these ringing phones, and there's just a lot to it. I mean, it's just great. Now you mentioned. The Mr. Freeze fight earlier. I think that's another part that this game really shines, especially compared to Asylum. Asylum's boss fights, if I remember correctly, were either the annoying Poison Ivy, and a bunch of like Bane-ish fights, and like that. I think that was pretty much it.
Yep.
This one has a bigger variety.
And very different fights. Very
different. The Clayface one is like kind of your standard Batman fight that you're used to, but like. It's well, done. The final, there's a bunch of different things you can do and all that.
Then there's the fight with Raj, which is like is similar to Clayface, just in the sense that it's like one guy in the center and you're avoiding his stuff. But then it gets like real out of control, and that's pretty cool. Then there's this like. It's not really a boss fight, but there's that fight with the Mad Hatter where you're like fighting all of his like rabbit minions, and it's like, and it's just like cool. A nice like beat 'em up thing.
Yeah, it lasts 5 minutes, but it's a really cool, side quest. The one that really, shines is Mr. Freeze. Absolutely. Because he is super smart and has a suit, and essentially the whole deal is he learns from his mistakes. So you have to hit him 5 or 6 times. Yep. And say the first time you climb out, from the grating, and you hit him that way, he'll be like, "Well, now I learned. And now if you're in the grating, he'll hit you." Exactly. So you got to find all these different ways to do it. You have to jump off a ledge. You have to use the magnet thing. You have to use the explosive gel near a wall. Yep. Like there's just it's. I can't think of too many other boss fights that are just that cool.
It's pretty cool.
It's frustrating at first because you're like, and there was one time where literally he only had one more hit, and then I was killed because I was like, how, and then you really got to think about it. It's like a puzzle boss fight, and that's just cool.
Which is a great idea.
I would say the only, and another part, I'll go into my only complaint. The other part that was really cool is when you're down with Raj, you have to go through like this like trial, which is pretty much you just be in this weird fantasy world flying around and whatever. And it reminds me a bit of the Scarecrow stuff, and
Right.
and my only like negative, because seriously, it's a very like well made
Yeah.
game. My only complaint is like, it's kind of a shame that you don't also get Scarecrow ones in here, because
Yeah.
gosh, that was fun in
Yeah, that was
in
cool.
Asylum. So like,
Yeah.
I guess that my only complaint is of a mission, and like, it is what it is. You can't have him in every game,
Right,
but like,
exactly. I mean,
but
because
there's
they basically they would take a lot of explaining to bring him back.
Yeah.
Because he gets taken by Croc, and you're like, he may be dead.
yeah, I forgot
mean,
about that.
so-
all right, well, let me say not just Scarecrow in general,
But just
so
that weird.
Asylum needed the Scarecrow stuff because it was very repetitious at times.
Yes.
So it was a breath of fresh air that was absolutely
Absolutely.
needed. This
Absolutely.
wasn't necessarily needed, but I guess I would have just enjoyed one other like the Mad Hatter thing was like it, where you're
Yeah.
transported to a different world.
Right.
But it was like 5 minutes long. The
It- right.
Raj
It
al
didn't
Ghul
take
stuff
long.
was like
But it was
5 minutes
it was
long.
an interesting.
It was interesting,
premise
but like
because
I guess I would want to see it a
Yeah.
couple more times
Right.
throughout the game, kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, I can see that. And I guess that was what the idea was for the side missions, would be that you would like have these like, because like if you were flying around and you heard a phone ringing, you would stop what you were doing, even if you were in the middle of a story mission, because you're like, oh, Zaz is calling, and I don't want anybody to die. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen, but like you're like, oh, geez. So like, if I was on my way to a mission, if I hear a phone ringing, I'm stopping and doing the phone.
Yeah.
So like, I guess like that's what they were going for. But yeah, I did like the transporting you away from Arkham City, and so the only two that really did that was the Raj al Ghul part
Like
and
I
the
said,
Mad
it's just
Hatter,
nice to
so.
see that once in a while, especially having Batman have to go through that. But
Yeah,
overall,
I
like I
agree.
said, it fixes the problems that the original one had. Asylum had.
Definitely.
Adds a lot more.
Yeah.
Adds more
The
bad
combat
guys,
did not
adds
feel
more
clunky
bosses.
at all. It was fun.
Really
It was good.
tweaks up the combat, where it's just like you don't have so many parts where you're like, man, come
Ugh,
on.
sigh.
It's just and again. There's one part in gameplay I want to really go into atmosphere, because it's a little more atmosphere, so I'll save it. It involves all the thugs and everything. But just in general, it's just excellent. I'm looking at a 9.25.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I would give it a 9
Dude,
for sure.
Like automatically, like I know I don't have to give a more of a rationale, but it's an open world game that I played and beat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
I agree.
Vice
Yeah.
City was literally the last one before this,
Right,
and
right.
that's like 10 years.
Exactly.
So I mean, that automatically is like, if it was an open, like I remember we were looking at trophies, and I was like, oh, I played Far Cry 3. Do you know how long I played Far Cry 3? 10 minutes, and I was like, you got to the point where it was like
No!
a big open map, and I was like, yeah, man, and I like the story. The bad
Right.
guy for that was so cool. I was
Right.
like, man, and then it was like, travel here, and there was like no quick travel, and you were just like walking, and I was like, yeah, nah. So yeah, so 9.25 me, not 9 for Parker. So
Yeah, absolutely.
sound. Again, I mean,
They
it's
got all the same
excellent,
people.
right? They got
Yeah.
all the same people. They got Mark
Absolutely.
Hamill's Joker. He's
Yep.
awesome. Batman. Batman
Kevin
fits as always.
Yep. He's perfect.
Harley is like. Well,
Yeah.
she is the voice from the animated series. These are the people that when you say,
I don't think the city was the same.
oh, you don't think it was the
No.
same?
Asylum, they got her, but then I don't think they brought her back to
I guess.
City.
Well, I guess I
But
didn't really
whatever.
notice because they got somebody.
Yeah, they got
close
somebody
enough.
good. Yeah, yeah.
These at this point, like these characters, not really counting Harley because she's not quite the same one from Asylum, but like when you say Batman and I hear it in my head, I hear these voices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
they
I
are
might
these
like
people,
like
for
I,
sure.
you know, you just do. You hear Mr. Freeze and you hear like they all every single one of them
absolutely.
is good. I can't think like
I mean, Hugo Strange was great. I mean, he was like kind of this major guy.
And Hugo Strange
and he had
did
that
he did-
weird, condescending.
he
like,
did the thing that you liked from Asylum where Joker would be like, Joker here, and he
right,
would just be
right.
like,
He kept
you know,
talking.
blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah, you know,
yep,
kind of thing, and it was
and
really
and
good.
then when you find like the interview tapes and stuff, as you uncover those, like it's Hugo Strange interviewing him rather than like in Arkham Asylum it was like all different like psychiatrists. They're all Hugo Strange, and so they all kind of go together with the storyline. But like it's really neat. But his voice was like cool because it was like Mr. Word, like real low, but like
and it's like,
real
you know,
condescending.
Operation 10 or whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
Protocol 10.
Protocol 10
Will
will
be-
commence
yeah.
in 1 hour. And
Which
you're
is
like,
crazy when you first get there. It's like 10 hours, and you're like, what the heck? And it just keeps going down as
every time you do a main story.
You're like, oh no!
Whatever this Protocol 10 is. So, just excellent. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I cannot
Yep.
picture a game that would do it better. Music does, and we talked about this before, it does what it needs to. I don't need some
Yeah.
crazy thing.
Right.
Fight music is fight music and
Exactly.
whatever. The thing that it does really good is like a lot of the sound effects.
Yeah, the atmosphere.
I'm almost
is really
getting the atmosphere, but like we're talking sound atmosphere.
Oh yeah,
the sound
absolutely.
of the city.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, obviously it's not a normal city, so you'll hear like, you know, when you're up not super high, you'll hear like thugs just talking.
Yeah,
you know,
because
and
you have
like,
you basically have your like your open communication thing, like kind of picking up any like bits of information, and it'll be like, you know, as the story progresses, things happen. Like people are like, yo, the Joker really sick, man, and it's like, I don't know, man, blah blah blah,
and
like
they totally did
Yeah.
not have to do
No,
that.
it's so
but
great.
it's like you beat Penguin, and it's like they'll be like, you know, so you'll see one guy and they'll be like, I'm loyal to Two-Face,
Right.
and it's just like you go 2 blocks away,
Yeah.
it's like I'm loyal to Penguin, man.
right.
And it's like you absolutely was not necessary, and
Yeah, it was so
obviously,
cool.
you know, despite the fact that there's really only a couple different voices for those, like clearly the
Yeah.
guys they had for the thugs did like a lot of voice work and whatever,
Yeah,
but it's
for
like
sure.
good. It's like, you know, where'd you go? You
Yeah,
know, like they
yeah,
get like
they
all
get mad,
scared
get
and whatever,
panicked.
and they get mad.
One of the cool ones is when you're in a Predator map. The AI for the people change. So like in the beginning of a Predator map, say you have like, which is like sneak mission basically, they call it that. So you might have like 7 guys, and you're picking them off one by one, and they're commenting on it. Well, when you get down to 2 guys, when you kill, like, let's say you kill the third, you know, when there's 3 guys, you kill one. The one guy that discovers him will go, I got a guy over here, and the other guy will go, and he'll be like, get over here, and he'll be like, no man, it's every man for himself, and he won't go to the other guy, and then both AIs get really twitchy, where they like will turn around suddenly, and then when you get down to one guy, he like will walk backwards, he'll like jump at every noise, he'll like once in a while he'll jump and shoot his gun, and then he'll be like, oh, the damn boiler, or something, like he'll like reference some sound that came on that he just like got spooked at, and I'm like, that's so good.
Yeah.
Like it makes it so much more believable what's happening, and then, you know, and like I can't get enough. Like that's just excellent. The
Yeah.
sound is just wonderful.
So they just did such a good job. I'm looking at a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. 9 out of 10 on sound.
So
For sure.
graphics and
Actually,
oh.
no wait. I think I gave it 10 last time because of the voices.
you did.
Yeah, I'm doing that again because it's the same voices and they're
Same
just so
voices.
good. I
Yep,
mean,
absolutely.
Batman or Joker is like, Joker's dying and Mark Hamill sounds like he's dying. Like I don't know if they waited for Mark Hamill to have a cold, but those parts when he's like getting interrupted by his own cough, like when he's dying, I'm like, I don't know how you do that as an
Yeah.
actor without you actually being sick. Like he's like, like that uncontrollable cough you get when you're actually sick. Like he's pulls off, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, just amazing. So
Yeah.
9 and 10 there.
Yeah.
Now graphics and atmosphere. Once again, we played on the PS4 HD
Right,
version.
right.
The I want to skim over graphics because I really want to go into atmosphere. The graphics are good.
Yes.
They does
Excellent.
it look like a game that was made in like 2010 or 11 or whatever?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like some of the big wide shots of the city, you know, they're not like the most detailed
Yeah,
PC game or whatever,
but
it looks
it
great.
looks good.
Yeah.
Like again, I love detective mode. I love being in detective mode. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
the darkness of the city. Like that's
Right.
it hits all that. Everybody looks good. You know, once in a while when you have when you get in like a close up conversation with someone, like faces might be a little static, but like I've literally never seen a game that like does it
Yeah.
good unless it is one of those quarter games like Last of Us.
Right.
Last of Us can do that because you're not going on this crazy open
Right,
world adventure. They
exactly.
can focus on these very, very specific situations where you're talking.
Yeah,
You know,
for
so it's going to be crazy when we get to a point where there's an open world game, but then like every conversation you have is like as animated as like The Last
Yeah,
of Us.
right,
It's going to be
right.
like, that's
mean-
going to be like the next gen for me. That'll be like, dude.
Witcher 3, I think is almost there.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Because I know a lot of them
in-depth.
like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, like
Yeah,
remember,
those ones are not great,
Knights
but
of the Old
Witcher
Republic
is
is
specifically
okay. Because, like, Knights of the Republic is a great game, but, like, you talk to them and you're like, and it's like, okay, whatever. So, yeah, they
anyway.
do the great job with the graphics. Now, the atmosphere just knocks
absolutely.
it out of the park. Again,
Absolutely.
so, like, you'll just be, like, you know, flying around, and, like, I mentioned it, like, you'll, like, all these different thugs will be, like, talking about, like, you could literally stand there, they talk about all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, all the time. And it's like, you're not, I guess you're technically in Gotham, but kind of, maybe on the
it is Gotham City.
And
they just walled off part of it.
Yeah. And you just, and it feels like it just, you know, it looks...
Yeah, everything looks great. I mean, like, it's just basically this part of Gotham that's been run down that they walled off. So, like, you see, like, places that, like, you know, at one point were probably, like, awesome when they were first built. But then Gotham City is crime-ridden, and it's just slowly become derelict. And so, like, you have this, like, just that whole idea, like, of like, formerly beautiful parts or buildings that are just now run down, and it's, like, really well done. There's, like, a church that, like, becomes the hub for, like, Aaron Cash and some other, like, do-gooders, like, regular people that want to, like, actually help people in Arkham City. They kind of find out that people are being treated bad, so they show up and are, like, helping people, and they kind of make the church their headquarters. At one point, part of the church blows up, and this and that, and it's just, like, such a great, and, like, Riddler, like, puts a bunch of question marks all over it, like, he calls it his place, and so it's just, like, really well done, just, like, as you go around, you, like, things stay blown up, you know, like, so when, after the game, you could still go and play, because you could still get all the Riddler trophies and stuff, and, like, when you're playing, like, you see Wonder Tower blown up, you know, like, you see these things, and, like, they still are there, and, like, going by the thugs talking, the thugs talk about Joker dying, and it's, like, such a great, like, it's post-game, like, you don't really need to do anything, like, people that are playing post-game, like, aren't really, like, they're just playing for the trophies or whatever, they're just playing because they're enjoying it, they don't need any more information, and yet they put it in there, where these thugs are like, nah, man, there's definitely a third Joker, like, if that was two Jokers, nah, there's the third one. He ain't dead. No way, man. No way, man. They're like, they don't want to hear it. You know, they don't want to hear the Joker's dead. And it's like, or then some people are like, man, I can't believe Batman finally did it. You know, and it's just like, dude, that's so cool. Like, they don't need to do that, but they did.
I mean, just excellent all around. I mean, every single part of it, you're just like, that atmosphere just feels just right. So, I mean, I'm looking at a 9.25.
I got a 9 for sound, or for graphics and everything.
Just had a great time with that.
Good.
Fun factor. I had fun. I mean, so the stuff that would have like made me like groan a little during Arkham Asylum, they pretty much like fixed it all. I mean, there a couple parts that were pretty hard, but again, it's not really like against it, you know.
Right.
It's like
it wasn't like
shouldn't
crazy
be a breeze
hard,
like the whole way through. There was nothing like the Poison Ivy fight from Asylum where you're like, dude, please.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much else to say. 8.5 is what I'm looking at there. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's super fun, and I will say, like, I wanted to collect, like, you know, you kind of made fun of me after Asylum, because you were like, yeah, good luck with the trophies in this one, because there are an insane number, like, a crazy amount, and I still felt the like, it was fun enough that I wanted to keep doing it. So, like, when the game was over, I was like, okay, I'm at, like, you know, if there's 440, like, secrets, I found, like, say, 300 or maybe high 200s, and was like, you know what, I'll see how I feel. And after I was done, I'm like, I want to keep playing this. And so I was like, okay.
So you got all the Riddlers?
I did end up getting them all.
Did anything cool happen at the end, like in Asylum?
You do, like, you basically show up at his, like, place or whatever to, like, take him down this time instead of that one. Like, you towards the end, there's this, like, Enigma machine where he took a bunch of hostages, and for every like 100 riddles you solve or something, or like 50 or 75, he reveals where one more hostage is, and you can save that hostage. And so you save like all but the last one, and it's Cash and some other people, Aaron Cash and some other people. And what's pretty cool, when you show up at the place where the last of them are, because you've basically figured out where his last place is without him knowing. The other ones he was like revealing to you, but this one you figured out without him knowing. So when you show up, he doesn't expect you. And the thing he has the people on, it's such a good idea. He basically has the people in this like a helmet where they can't see, and they're like shackled to this little on the helmet is a bunch of bombs, and they're shackled to this like little like RC car or something that's or like a train track thing, and it's basically pulling them in a circle, like. And there's like 6 of them, so they're all being pulled in these different concentric circles, and they're being pulled along. And if they stop or fall down, the detonator goes off, and they die, and the bomb blows up. And so like if they keep walking, right, and Riddler's kind of like egging them on that they're gonna like be too tired at some point and have to stop. And you basically have to make your way to Riddler through this maze of these people where if they bump into you, like the bomb goes off because they stop walking for a split second. And so you have to like, it's like a sneak mission, but like it's really clever because you're making your way through this maze of people walking in a circle. And it's like cool. Really tough because like I lost a couple times because I was like, okay, I think I'm okay. And then all of a sudden I wasn't paying attention and a guy walks into me and I'm like, oh, damn it. So it was pretty cool. But you make your way in and then you basically take him down by like, sneaking underneath. And it's pretty cool because you take him down and he's like, and then he's just like, what? This is ridiculous. Obviously getting all mad. But his like animation was so good. Like, because you get to see him in this one. Basically when you die to a Riddler thing, they show him.
Yeah.
And the way they did his model was so good, and his like condescending like I'm smarter than you stuff. I loved it, and so yeah, I ended up having enough fun that I wanted to keep going till I got everything, and when I did, I was kind of like, oh, it's over, but so I had a lot of fun. So I'm gonna go with a 9 for fun factor.
Well, I mean, when you do the entire thing and you're like, man, it's over, and that's as positive it can get.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the very last one we have is replayability. I played this one before, and I played this one again, obviously, now to do this review. But it has been several years. I will say, as I'm sitting here now, I had a good time replaying it, but I don't have like a urge to play it again.
Right.
Like I would in the future if it's just like a couple years from now or whatever, and it's just like, oh, what do I do? Oh, I'll go through City. I probably wouldn't, now that I know all the stuff with the side quests. If I did it, I would probably just go through to like
just
do the main story stuff again, because like I don't need to do that hush part again to learn that it's like it's whatever. It's like I did it, you know, kind of thing.
Exactly, for sure.
So I'm not looking at an average 5 out of 10 because that would just be like, nah, like, I just don't feel like it. Like, I think I'm sitting a little bit higher simply because I don't have a burning desire, but I would. I think I'm looking at a 7 overall for that.
Yeah. I would give this, for replayability, a 6. Just because when the fun factor kept me getting everything, but once I got everything, I really do not need to go back and start at the beginning. Like, I mean, if the metric is replaying it from the beginning, then no. Which I agree. I agree is what it is. I'm like, nah. Like, that does not interest me. Like, like, just because I would feel like I want to collect everything again, and that just seems like not exciting. Even if I tried to play it through for just the story, I feel like I'd be like, well, let me just get this.
Yeah.
And then I would just be like, oh, damn it. And then again, they have those challenges like they did in the other one, which isn't my cup of tea. I did a few of them just because whatever. But it doesn't, some of them are really, really hard. And you're like, okay, Like, I could see myself if I worked at it getting this, but it, like, that was the downside. Like, I don't know what they need to do with the challenges, but they were just not enough for me to want to get them. Like, some of them were sort of interesting, so I tried them out, but for the most part, they didn't hold my attention where I was like, all right, I want to do these. Like, it was just like, all right, I don't know. So yeah, I would say, yeah, with 6, what did I say, 6, yeah.
Yeah.
For replayability.
So overall, it looks like we have a highest rated game of all of our 8 so far.
Really?
Now, there were a couple close ones. Mine came up to 8.5. Yours came to 8.33. We had some other ones where, like, Life is Strange, I gave an 8, you gave an 8.3. Resident Evil 7, you gave an 8.42. I was a little lower at 7.6. So this is overall the highest rated one. I would probably even go to say, out of all 8 games we've done so far, the 3 Resident Evils and Doom and Life is Strange and, well, the 4 Resident Evils, excuse me.
Right.
Doom and Life is Strange and something, or Asylum.
Right.
I would say this is probably the best game that we reviewed so far, just as like a overall experience, and that's how we're doing it. It's not just like, is it the best? Is it the best story? Maybe not. Maybe Life is Strange is better.
Right.
You know, is it it is the best atmosphere. It
Yeah,
has that
no,
one.
that's
Is it the
down
best
pat.
graphics? No, probably not. But like overall, it's like just a great experience. It's great.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
We've been thinking about what to.
Just going off that, I think for me, Doom is still number 1, but this is a close second. I don't know what my score came out to. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, yours for Doom was 8.3. So it's like right there.
Okay.
Like the only, it honestly might have been like the same.
Right.
I just wrote 8.3 instead of 8.33. So it might be literally tied for you.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And I would put them
technically
right
RE7 you gave the highest score, although that was an early
That's
episode.
true. That's true. But like that was really good actually. I kind of forgot I did RE7, and now that I'm thinking about it, I did like RE7 a little bit better. So when I actually think about it, in my mind I was only thinking of Doom and then the other ones, but RE7 was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, never.
So yeah, we were thinking about what to do. Now the next episode you will see from us is not going to be this. But we were thinking like, okay, so there's kind of a black sheep in the Batman Arkham family, and it's Origins for the PS3.
Right.
And we were kind of like on the edge of like, will we do it? Will we just skip it and go to Night? Because eventually we will absolutely do Night.
Right.
For PS4.
Right.
Yeah,
but I mean, I have to play Night now that the way this one ended, I'm like, what? There's more story? I gotta know it!
Yeah, absolutely. and we were like thinking about it. I think we're gonna trudge through Origins.
Yeah,
I've only played it like a half hour, but I just like, and this is a story for another time, but like in general, if we're looking at the public consensus, it's that it is the least liked by far. And I'm more curious than anything
it's
to see.
Curious because it's Origins. Like,
are they? Yeah.
Like that sounds interesting. So in my mind, it should be the best of the first 3 anyway. Like not including Night. Like as they're released, I would assume that it would be like Origins. Wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
especially for a
so
story as deep and complex as Batman. So. Like I said, it might not be the next episode you see from us in terms of the game reviews, but we will be doing it eventually.
Yep.
Once I get down to brass tacks and actually do it.
Now, like, would you review a game if you put it down and then would give like a really low score? Like, would you? Do you have to beat a game?
So I'm guessing. Okay, so let's make a pact as far as it's concerned. As long as we're doing an episode together, we have to have either one of us trudge through and beat it, or at least enough to talk about story wise to be like kind of thing. So like if you beat it and I begrudgingly got like 40% through, I think that would be okay because you could be like, here's the story, and I'd be like, oh, really? Cool.
Right. But
now,
like, because obviously,
I mean, gosh,
like, why would we review things below a 5?
We gotta.
If we play them all the way through, the whole point is that you put it down. Like, how can you ever review something a 1 or a 0 if you played it all the way through?
We gave a 1 to RE6 gameplay. I gave a 1 to the gameplay.
To one aspect. But I'm saying, for a game to overall be super low...
I gotta tell you, I mean, RE6 got really bad scores, and I think that you get to that point, it's, what's that Stockholm syndrome to the game you're playing. Literally, because you're like, you get to the point where you're like, I'm no quitter.
Right.
You know, like,
this isn't gonna beat me.
I'm a man. Like, I'm gonna beat this game, you know, kind of thing. And that's how we got to RE6, because of course we wanted to quit the whole way through.
Oh,
like every second, if you were like, let's stop. But then I would have been like, dude, we quit on RE6. Like, come on. So I don't know. It would have to be something that would be so utterly like, you know, for me, it would be not bad because I can play through bad. It would be so hard that, like, if you were like, let's review Dark Souls 2,
right,
and I would play it for like an hour and be like, what you. Like, I died a million times.
Right.
I just don't have the patience for it. Yeah. But even something super bad that you can, like, trudge through, I would probably do it, at least for these.
But I feel like in a Dark Souls game, at least, like, you could look up a strategy that would be easy.
Maybe.
And then be like, okay. Like, because there are strategies that make the Souls game easier. Like, where it's, like, kind of spam certain skills or weapons. But, like, obviously that's gaming the system.
I don't think I could see it, because the games that we do are also games that, at the very least, interest me. That doesn't mean they're going to be good.
Right.
So you're not like, let's play Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition. I would not beat it, because it's like, you'd be like, let's do that. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that, you know?
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
because the only games I wouldn't are, like, super, super, super long. I'd be like, I couldn't beat it. It was too long for me. I can't do it, you know.
So just so we're clear, if you get interested in a game and then you play it, but you don't, you put it down because you're like, I don't want to play this. We're not going to review a game like that.
I'm going to push through regardless.
If you're going to review it, you're going to push through. If it's one I'm going to review,
I'm going to push through. Right.
All right, that makes sense.
Right.
All right, so just so the folks at home are clear.
So when we start up the Origins review, the only reason I'm going to say I couldn't beat it is literally I couldn't beat it. I got to a part, and I tried 50 times, and I tried the next day, and I tried the next day, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna like have somebody else beat it for me. I set it to easy just so I could get through it, and I couldn't beat it. So
right.
We'll see.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll see. So anyway, thank you again for listening, and we'll enjoy our time in Ham City.
Ham City.
See you next time.